Saint Augustine on the Most Holy Trinity, Book 3, Chapter 6 and following. Chapter 6, Diversity alone makes a miracle. And who is it that restored to the corpses their proper souls when the dead rose again? Ezekiel 37, 1-10. Unless he who gives life to the flesh in the mother's womb, in order that they may come into being who yet are to die. But when such things happen, in a continuous kind of river of ever-flowing succession, passing from the hidden to the visible, and from the visible to the hidden, by regular and beaten track, then they are called natural, when for the admonition of men they are thrust in by an unusual changeableness, then they are called miracles. Chapter 7, Great Miracles Wrought by Magic Arts. I see here what may occur to a weak judgment, namely, why such miracles are wrought also by magic arts. For the wise men of Pharaoh likewise made serpents, and did other like things. Yet it is still more a matter of wonder how it was that the power of those magicians, which was able to make serpents, when it came to very small flies, failed altogether. For the lice, by which third plague the proud people of Egypt were smitten, are very short-lived little flies. Yet there certainly the magicians failed, saying, "This is the finger of God." Exodus chapter 7 and 8. And hence it is given us to understand that not even those angels and powers of the air that transgressed, who have been thrust down into that lowest darkness, as into a peculiar prison, from their habitation in that lofty ethereal purity, through whom magic arts have whatever power they have, can do anything except by power given from above. Now that power is given either to deceive the deceitful, as it was given against the Egyptians, and against the magicians also themselves, in order that in the seducing of those spirits they might seem admirable by whom they were wrought, but to be condemned by the truth of God, or for the admonishing of the faithful, lest they should desire to do anything of the kind as though it were a great thing, for which reason they have been handed down to us also by authority of Scripture. Or lastly, for the exercising, proving, and manifesting of the patience of the righteous. For it was not by any small power of visible miracles that Job lost all that he had, and both his children and his bodily health itself. See Job chapter 1 and chapter 2. Chapter 8, God alone creates those things which are changed by magic art. Yet it is not on this account to be thought that the matter of visible things is subservient to the bidding of those wicked angels, but rather to that of God, by whom this power is given, just so far as he, who is unchangeable, determines in his lofty and spiritual abode to give it. For water and fire and earth are subservient even to wicked men, who are condemned to the mines, in order that they may do therewith what they will, but only so far as it is permitted. Nor in truth are those evil angels to be called creators, because by their means the magicians, withstanding the servant of God, made frogs and serpents. For it was not they who created them, but in truth some hidden seeds of all things that are born corporeally and visibly, are concealed in the corporeal elements of this world. For those seeds that are visible now to our eyes from fruits and living things are quite distinct from the hidden seeds of those former seeds, from which, at the bidding of the Creator, the water produced the first swimming creatures and fowl, and the earth, the first birds after their kind, and the first living creatures after their kind. Genesis 1:20-25. For neither at that time were those seeds so drawn forth into products of their several kinds, as that the power of production was exhausted in those products. But oftentimes suitable combinations of circumstances are wanting, whereby they may be enabled to burst forth and complete their species. For consider the very least shoot is a seed, for, if fitly consigned to the earth, it produces a tree. But of this shoot there is a yet more subtle seed in some grain of the same species, and this is visible even to us. But of this grain also there is further still a seed, which although we are unable to see it with our eyes, yet we can conjecture its existence from our reason, because, except there were some such power in those elements, there would not so frequently be produced from the earth things which had not been sown there, nor yet so many animals without any previous commixture of male and female, whether on the land or in the water, which yet grow, and by commingling bring forth others, while themselves sprang up without any union of parents. And certainly bees do not conceive the seeds of their young by commixture, but rather them as they lie scattered over the earth with their mouth. For the creator of these invisible seeds is the creator of all things himself, since whatever comes forth to our sight by being born receives the first beginnings of its course from hidden seeds, and takes the suggestive increments of its proper size and its distinctive forms from these as it were original rules. As therefore we do not call parents the creators of men, nor farmers the creators of corn, although it is by the outward application of their actions that the power of God operates within for the creating these things. So it is not right to think not only the bad, but even the good angels to be creators, if, through the subtlety of their perception and body, they know the seeds of things which to us are more hidden, and scatter them secretly through fit temperings of the elements, and so furnish opportunities of producing things and of accelerating their increase. But neither do the good angels do these things, except as far as God commands, nor do the evil ones do them wrongfully, except as far as he righteously permits. For the malignity of the wicked one makes his own will wrongful, but the power to do so he receives rightfully, whether for his own punishment, or, in the case of others, for the punishment of the wicked, or for the praise of the good. Accordingly, the Apostle Paul, distinguishing God's creating and forming within from the operation of the creature which are applied from without, and drawing a similitude from agriculture, says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. 1 Corinthians 3:6. As therefore in the case of spiritual life itself, no one except God can work righteousness in our minds, yet men also are able to preach the gospel as an outward means, not only the good in sincerity, but also the evil in pretense. Philippians 1:18. So, in the creation of visible things, it is God that works. From within, but the exterior operation, whether of good or bad, of angels or men, or even of any kind of animal according to his own absolute power, and to the distribution of faculties and the several appetites for things pleasant, which he himself has imparted, are applied by him to that nature of things wherein he creates all things in like manner as agriculture is to the soil. Wherefore I can no more call the bad angels evoked by magic arts the creators of the frogs and serpents, than I can say that bad men were creators of the corn crop, which I see to have sprung up through their labor. Just as Jacob, again, was not the creator of the colors in the flocks because he placed the various colored rods for the several mothers as they drank to look at in conceiving. Genesis 30:41. Yet neither were the cattle themselves creators of the variety of their own offspring, because the variegated image impressed through their eyes by the sight of the varied rods clave to their soul, but could affect the body that was animated by the spirit, thus affected only through sympathy with this commingling, so far as to stain with color the tender beginnings of their offspring. For that they are so affected from themselves, whether the soul from the body or the body from the soul, arises in truth from suitable reasons, which immutably exist in that highest wisdom of God himself, which no extent of place contains, and which, while it is itself unchangeable, yet quits not one even of those things which are changeable, because there is not one of them that is not created by itself. For it was the unchangeable and invisible reason of the wisdom of God, by which all things are created, which caused no rods but cattle to be born from cattle, but that the color of the cattle conceived should be in any degree influenced by the variety of the rods, came to pass through the soul of the pregnant cattle, being affected through their eyes from without, and so according to its own measure, drawing inwardly within itself the rule of formation, which it received from the innermost power of its own Creator. How great, however, may be the power of the soul in affecting and changing corporeal substance, although certainly it can't be called the creator of the body, because every cause of changeable and sensible substance, and all its measure and number and weight by which are brought to pass both its being at all and its being of such and such a nature, arise from the invisible and unchangeable life, which is above all things, and which reaches even to the most distant and earthly things, is a very copious subject and one not now necessary. But I thought the act of Jacob about the cattle should be noticed for this reason, viz., in order that it might be perceived that if the man who thus placed those rods can't be called the creator of the colors in the lambs and kids, nor yet even the souls themselves of the mothers, which colored the seeds conceived in the flesh by the image of variegated color, conceived through the eyes of the body, so far as nature permitted it, much less can it be said that the creators of the frogs and serpents were the bad angels through whom the magicians of Pharaoh then made them. Chapter 9. The original cause of all things is from God. For it is one thing to make and administer the creature from the innermost and highest turning point of causation, which he alone does, who is God the Creator, but quite another thing to apply some operation from without in proportion to the strength and faculties assigned to each by him, so that what is created may come forth into being at this time, or at that and in this or that way. For all these things in the way of original and beginning have already been created in a kind of texture of the elements, but they come forth when they get the opportunity. For as mothers are pregnant with young, so the world itself is pregnant with the causes of things that are born, which are not created in it except from that highest essence, where nothing either springs up or dies, either begins to be or ceases. But the applying from without of advantageous causes, which although they are not natural, yet are to be applied according to nature, in order that those things which are contained and hidden in the secret bosom of nature may break forth and be outwardly created in some way by the unfolding of the proper measures and numbers and weights which they have received in secret from him who has ordered all things in measure and number and weight. Wisdom 11:20. This is not only in the power of bad angels, but also of bad men, as I have shown above by the example of agriculture. But lest the somewhat different condition of animals should trouble anyone, in that they have the breath of life with the sense of desiring those things that are according to nature and of avoiding those things that are contrary to it. We must consider also how many men there are who know from what herbs or flesh, or from what juices or liquids you please, of whatever sort, whether so placed or so buried or so bruised and so mixed, this or that animal is commonly born, yet who can be so foolish as to dare to call himself the creator of these animals? Is it therefore to be wondered at if just as any the most worthless of men can know whence such or such worms and flies are produced, so the evil angels, in proportion to the subtlety of their perceptions, discern in the more hidden seeds of the elements whence frogs and serpents are produced, and so through certain and known opportune combinations applying these seeds by secret movements, cause them to be created, but do not create them. Only men do not marvel at those things that are usually done by men. But if anyone chanced to wonder at the quickness of those growth in that those living beings were so quickly made, let him consider how even this way be brought about by men in proportion to the measure of human capability. For whence is it that the same bodies generate worms more quickly in summer than in winter, or in hotter than in colder places? Only these things are applied by men with so much the more difficulty, in proportion as their earthly and sluggish members are wanting in subtlety of perception and in rapidity of bodily motion, and hence it arises that in the case of any kind of angels, in proportion as it is easier for them to draw out the proximate causes from the elements, so much the more marvelous is their rapidity in works of this kind. But he only is the Creator who is the chief former of these things. Neither can anyone be this unless he, with whom primarily rests the measure, number, and weight of all things existing. And he is God, the one Creator, by whom and by whose unspeakable power it comes to pass also, that what these angels were able to do if they were permitted, they are therefore not able to do because they are not permitted. For there is no other reason why they who made frogs and serpents were not able to make the most minute flies, unless because the greater power of God was present, prohibiting them through the Holy Spirit, which even the magicians themselves confessed, saying, "This is the finger of God." Exodus 7:12 and chapter 8, verses 7, 18, and 19. But what they are able to do by nature yet can't do because they are prohibited, and what the very condition of their nature itself does not suffer them to do, it is difficult, nay, impossible for man to search out, unless through that gift of God which the Apostle mentions when he says, "To another the discerning of spirits." 1 Corinthians 12:10. For we know that a man can walk, yet that he can't do so if he is not permitted, but that he can fly even if he be permitted. So those angels also are able to do certain things if they are permitted by more powerful angels, according to the supreme commandment of God, but can't do certain other things, not even if they are permitted by them, because he does not permit from whom they have received such and such a measure of natural powers, who even by his angels does not usually permit what he has given them power to be able to do. Excepting therefore those corporeal things which are done in the order of nature in a perfectly usual series of times, as e.g. the rising and setting of the stars, the generations and death of animals, the innumerable diversities of seeds and buds, the vapors and the clouds, the snow and the rain, the lightnings and the thunder, the thunderbolts and the hail, the winds and the fire, cold and heat, and all like things, excepting also those which in the same order of nature occur rarely, such as eclipses, unusual appearances of stars and monsters, and earthquakes, and such like. All these, I say, are to be accepted, of which indeed the first and chief cause is only the will of God. Whence also in the Psalm, when some things of this kind had been mentioned, fire and hail, snow and vapor, stormy wind, lest anyone should think those to be brought about either by chance or only from corporeal causes, or even from such as are spiritual, but exist apart from the will of God, it is added immediately, fulfilling his word. Psalm 100